Welcome, welcome, welcome. Recently, California government and Californians in general have come to recognize the option that Donald Trump may return as president of the United States of America. You're going to start seeing some articles coming out, and we're going to be focusing on one particularly from the LA Times called California Attorney General Bonta Plans How to Thwart Trump with Lawsuits If He Wins Another Term. We're going to show you how there's a lot of triumphalism in California news, and basically a lot of people are forgetting history and giving a rose-colored picture of what happened. In reality, California was not able to stop Trump on many of the things that he did. We filed multiple lawsuits and we shut him down on many avenues, but there were many other important avenues that affected real people and their life where the California government completely and totally failed to protect the California people and land and property and values and laws in any meaningful way. Donald Trump was backed up by the U.S. Supreme Court, meaning although liberals like to say that he doesn't know the law, the top lawmaker deciders backed him up multiple times. Now, a lot of this information you are not going to see in the mainstream news at all. I've been looking, I can't find anyone covering this, which is odd, because mainstream newspapers documented all of this just 4 to 5 years ago. And yet now all of them have totally forgot about that reporting. Weird. We'll get to it, but first. Okay, let's do a deep dive. So the article that we're going to be pulling from is something I wrote on Medium. The Resist movement has massively failed to protect California against Trump. The Resist movement was the name of the California resistance to Trump when he was president. Underneath that is this article from the Los Angeles Times that comes out now. It's basically this right here. California Attorney General Bonta plans how to thwart Trump with lawsuits if he wins another term. California Attorney General Bonta said he and staff have been reviewing President Trump's second-term agenda to prepare a potential onslaught on environmental, immigration, and civil rights lawsuits in the event he defeats President Biden in November. We can't be caught flat-footed, Bonta said. Fortunately and unfortunately, we have 4 years of Trump 1.0. We know some of the moves and priorities. We expect them to be different. Bonta, a Democrat, is considering a run for governor, who said has been reviewing the work of his predecessor, Javier Becerra, who filed more than 100 lawsuits against Trump policies before leaving the office. California Democratic politicians have long seen themselves as the bulwark against conservative policies, never more so than during the Trump presidency, when the state became the de facto headquarters of the so-called resistance. Resist, hence the title of this episode. And the challenges to Trump, while popular with many, at times put Democrats in the awkward position of asserting states' rights after long advocating for standards that would apply across the country. So this is the name of the article where I pulled the material from. I wrote this. Let me double check on that real quick. In 2018. I wrote this in 2018. It's 2024, 6 years later. 6 years later. So basically 6 years later, all the information that I'm about to show you has been completely forgotten. So that's why we're doing this show. I don't know why the mainstream media in California has completely forgotten on this, although they reported on it, but we'll cover that for you. You'll have to answer that for yourself. So California failed to protect its economy against Trump. A trade war has been launched. California economy has lost billions and hundreds of thousands of jobs. Trump has managed to cut down on skilled immigrant labor and massively reduce the flow of immigrants who work in agriculture. Trump so far has managed to cut Obamacare, and hundreds of thousands of Californians are without health care now. California failed to protect its values against Trump, in addition to its economy. The Supreme Court has said that women and minorities don't have a right to class action lawsuits against discrimination. They don't have a right to prosecute police who burst into their home without a warrant and accidentally gunned them down in their own home. The highest court has also said it is legal for businesses to discriminate against LGBTQ customers, and the military can partially ban some LGBTQ citizens from joining. The High Court also said it is legal for federal agents to pursue racial profiling for immigration policing, and they do racially profile Latinos, quotes, without impunity in California. Currently, California has failed to stop funding for the racist border wall, stop construction of the racist border wall, punish California companies who want to work for Trump for the border wall. California has also failed to ensure that 2/3 of its police agencies don't work with ICE officials, that companies don't help ICE officials to do mass arrests of undocumented people, and that the undocumented are not held in an unlimited detention, or that they don't die in those detention camps. California has failed to protect legal immigrants who can be blocked from asylum or blocked from entering because they're Muslim, and the federal government can punish California by withholding funds because it chooses to protect the undocumented. So next time you hear California is winning against Trump or California won against Trump, say perhaps, but you are losing in all of the important areas. You're never going to see this. You're going to see we won on this. California filed so many lawsuits and we beat Trump on this and beat him on that. You're never going to hear this. All of the things that California lost on that hurt to its economy and to protecting its values and its people. We're going to go by in detail. So Sacramento Bee editorial board 2016, forget CalExit, just defend California against Trump. You don't need to leave. Federal government works. We can make this work. The Sacramento Bee, the newspaper, California's government had its editors take time to issue a special statement that California did not need to leave because if it tried, it could stop Trump's actions that are detrimental to the California robust economy. Quote, more constructive would be a statewide effort to stand strong and defend our values and economy against what is sure to be an onslaught of hostile federal legislation. Trump's promise to dismantle the Affordable Care Act, Trump's vows to start a trade war with China, his immigration policy, etc. Sacramento Bee, it is more constructive for a statewide effort to stand and defend our values and economy rather than a CalExit. And we can stop Trump's work on the Affordable Care Act and cutting health insurance to low-income people and stop his trade war with China, and we can stop his immigration policies, and we can stop his harassment to Latinos and immigrations. Actually, no, you can't, and no, you didn't. So this was the attitude in 2016. Come on, guys, we don't need CalExit. We can totally stop all this. By the way, look at how they talked in 2016. It's the exact same way they're talking in 2024. We can beat them. We beat them so hard last time. We filed so many lawsuits. We can beat them. Nowhere in this article from Los Angeles Times is going to be anything about what I'm going to show you. All the massive losses, all the dead people, all the disenfranchised people, all the second-class citizens, all the people who are minorities with brown skin and lost their rights. You're not going to hear any of that. So it's, yeah, we beat them last time. We could beat them. 2024. And here's 2016. Come on, guys, we could just beat them. So they're not getting the message. So here we go. Let's go by detail. All right. So make sure that you can see this. Okay, here we go, because I want you to be able to see this. Preventing Trump from engaging in a trade war. Trump did not start a trade war with China. Trump did start a trade war with China and has gone on long enough to damage California's agriculture and threaten to damage it permanently. The cost of Trump's trade war mounting in California. Californians have paid $5.3 billion in additional tariff costs so far, according to analysis by Farmers for Free Trade. The group says California farmers and businesses have faced $1.6 billion in new retaliatory tariffs, and California exports subject to retaliation from trading partners targeted by Trump have dropped 9.5%. Trump could cost 248,000 jobs in the state. So he won that. He started the trade war with China. It was not stopped. This comes from here. Ironically, from the Sacramento editorial board, the same group who said we could stop Trump on his trade war with China in 2016, in 2019 had to admit we can't stop Trump's trade war. Ironic. Preventing Trump from blocking skilled immigrants. The Trump administration is denying and delaying more skilled worker visa petitions than at any time since at least 2015. But lawyers who help employers apply for the visa say the agency is rejecting legitimate applications and tying up requests in bureaucratic red tape. That comes from this article. He was able to stop high-skilled immigrants with brown skin from coming into America, and that dramatically affected the California economy. We were not able to stop him doing that. Prevent Trump from blocking unskilled immigrants. 56% of California farmers were able to hire the amount of employees they needed at some point in the last 5 years. The report from the California Farm Bureau, conducted in collaboration with California Davis, highlighted widespread labor shortages. Here's the article. Half of California farmers can't find enough workers. So you were not able to stop the impact to our economy, and you were not able to stop him rounding up undocumented immigrants and its effect on our agriculture industry. That's from Newsweek. Prevented removing funds from healthcare and removing California's health insurance. On July 18, 2018, Judge Vincent Chabria, the Federal District Court of Northern District, California, issued an order dismissing a lawsuit brought by California, 18 other states, dismissing it over the Trump administration's decision to abruptly stop making payments for cost-sharing reductions. A federal judge in Texas said Friday that the Affordable Care Act's individual coverage mandate is unconstitutional, and the rest of the law must fail. The Supreme Court agrees to hear Obama cases with billions of dollars at stake. So they were not able to stop Trump's challenges to health care and pushing back on Obamacare. Here you go. That comes from this article. States' lawsuits over cost-sharing reductions is dismissed by the federal government, backing Trump. So the federal government backed Trump over California and 18 states. You'll never hear that. All right, let's get to California values. Many experts said that we can protect our California values. So GQ magazine, contemporaneously on a parallel but significant, more consequential rail to the secession movement, California lawmakers, activists, and judges began to give citizens another outlet for their indignation over the election of Trump. Legal scholars and non-secession supporting Californians I spoke to emphasized the legal way that California can toe the line of what is permitted constitutionally, a nonviolent resistance to the imposition of federal law. The next venue for more assertive action from California's officials is likely to be the courts, where the right of state versus the federal governments are tested. Just as conservative Texas used litigation in an attempt to stymie then President Obama on immigration and environmental policy, California is looking to the judiciary to block Trump's goals. So here's more talk from GQ magazine and LA Times. Hey, we can use federalism to defeat this system. Remember, we saw this article here. Hold on, we're getting there. Remember 2016. We don't need to secede. We don't need to pursue Calexit. We can use federalism to stop Trump. More constructive would be a statewide effort to stand strong and defend our values. That was 2016. Okay. Here they are. Also saying this around the same time. Resist. We can use the federal system. We can push back. So how well did California do in protecting California values? Because these people are saying that we could do it. Okay. Prevent discrimination against women and minorities. Ensure women and minorities have the tools they need to fight against discrimination and sexual abuse at work. Sexual abuse at work. Said they would stop Trump from taking away civil rights. The Supreme Court basically barred workers nationwide from launching class action lawsuits against employers. The class action, on the other hand, is one of the key legal mechanisms that workers have to raise their collective voices on issues of wage theft, discrimination, and sexual abuse. So racial discrimination, sexual abuse against women, women and minorities now no longer have the main tool they had to fight against discrimination. And the Supreme Court completely backed Trump on that. Discrimination against women and minorities, part 2. Police officers can barge into a house without a warrant, without announcing themselves, and shoot someone if they fear for their life when they pull the trigger. That's what the Supreme Court ruled on Tuesday when all 8 justices agreed to strike down the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals provocation doctrine, the only court rule in the country that sought to hold cops accountable for their actions leading to excessive use of force. Racial minorities made up 37.4% of the general population in the U.S. and 46.6% of armed and unarmed victims, but they made 62.7% of unarmed people killed by the police. So racial minorities make up 62.7% of unarmed people killed by the police. The only rule that sought to hold cops accountable for excessive use of force was struck down by the Supreme Court. So now it's easier for cops to kill minorities, backed by the Supreme Court, American law. During Trump's time, prevent discrimination against LGBTQ. The Supreme Court ruled Monday in favor of Christian Baker in Colorado, who refused a custom cake for a same-sex couple. So absolutely refused to stop discrimination against LGBTQ. There's the article. That's from Politico, I believe. Prevent discrimination against LGBTQ, Part 2. Prevent a ban of transgenders serving in the military. The Supreme Court will allow President Trump's partial ban on transgender people serving in the military to take effect, while court challenges continue. Supreme Court allows Trump's partial ban on transgender troops in military to take effect. So that was a win for him. Block the construction of the border wall and punish those that support the border wall. They said they would punish this. So Senator Ricardo Lara, the author of SB 30, legislation opposing the construction of the border wall, pulled his bill on July 12, 2017, on the same day that Trump tweeted that the $1.6 billion he built to request the border wall has been allocated by the House of Representatives committee. Shut down within 1 year. The bill had little support from Sacramento, although we talked a big game. Here are some of the resistance bills that stalled in the legislature. Border Wall Senate Bill 30. Such discrimination to those providing goods or services to support the federal government's constitution of the border wall may be unconstitutional. So they could not stop the construction of the border wall. They backed away 1 year after saying it was the most horrible racist thing ever. And then they were told you cannot punish companies for helping with the construction of the border wall, although that's what you passed. And that comes from this article here. Again, you're never going to hear that. They really got spanked hard on this because they were like, it's a racist border wall that'll never happen in California. And it did. So you'll never hear them bring up. Massively embarrassed California government. Block the construction of the border wall, even though California led a coalition of 16 states. It still lost. The U.S. Supreme Court on Friday handled President Trump a victory by letting his administration redirect $2.5 billion in money approved by Congress. So we won't let him construct that wall or redirect funding. Actually, you will, and the Supreme Court will back him. So you totally lost on that. Block the construction of the border wall, Part 3. The U.S. Supreme Court said on Monday they rebuffed a challenge by 3 conservation groups to the authority of President Donald Trump's administration to build a wall on the U.S. border. The justice declined to hear the group's appeal of a ruling by a federal judge in California rejecting their claims that the administration had pursued border wall projects without complying with environmental laws. So we said, well, you're going to have to comply with California environmental laws. No, they don't. Trump can build his racist border wall, and the highest legal authority in America says they back him. Total fail on California. Preventing the racist immigration ban. Well, I don't even want to go to it. He was able to do the racist ban and ban people from coming into America or immigrating because they're Muslim. So California did all these protests. We protested every airport saying this is racist and you can't do it. And it did nothing. We could not protect Muslim people here. Protect immigrants, protect asylum. U.S. Supreme Court on Wednesday granted a request by President Donald Trump's administration to fully enforce a new rule that would curtail asylum applications by immigrants at the U.S. border, a key element of its hardline immigration policies. The court said under the rule, which requires most immigrants who want asylum to first seek safe haven in a third country through which they travel on their way to the United States, could go into effect. So he was able to put more draconian immigration rules to make it harder for asylum seekers. Completely won. Supreme Court backed him up on that. Fail by California to stop that. Protecting undocumented immigrants, Part 1. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on Friday ruled in favor of Trump's administration to prioritize federal dollars for local policing in towns and cities that complied with certain immigration policies. So we wanted to protect undocumented immigrants here. We said we can do it no matter what. Trump said, I will cut federal funding to you. And I remember seeing this on news. Liberals were like, that's ridiculous. You can't cut federal funding to liberal cities based on liberal policies. Wrong. Federal government backed him up and didn't back up California. So massive loss on that. Protecting undocumented immigrants, Part 2. The California government said that they would protect undocumented Californians from harsh treatment by federal authorities. The Supreme Court on Tuesday endorsed the U.S. government's authority to detain immigrants awaiting deportation anytime, potentially even years after they have completed prison terms, handing President Trump a victory as he pursues hardline immigration policies. And there's the article. So that's the second time where they said Supreme Court allowed him to pursue hardline immigration policies. Protecting undocumented immigrants again. The legislature still must sign off on a plan that would make such immigrants ages 19 to 25 eligible for Medi-Cal, the state's Medicaid program. The deal was a win for Newsom, who rejected it as too expensive a state Senate plan to include adults 65 and older living in the state illegally. As many as 30,000 California residents age 65 or over don't have primary care. UC Berkeley Labor Center projects 1.15 million undocumented adults would be eligible for full scope Medi-Cal 2020 if coverage were extended to all income. They were not able to provide this. So they got it up to people age 25, but they stopped short of providing for people who were elderly and illegal. So 30,000 people won't get health coverage in California. Protecting undocumented, Part 5. Federal immigration officials who launched a big enforcement operation this week in Northern California objected to the actions being labeled sweeps or raids, saying the government went after specific people and does not target aliens indiscriminately, meaning racial profiling, in what he called an instance of racial profiling. They burst into View Park Automotive, South Los Angeles, carrying semi-automatic weapons and wearing vests that simply read police. They didn't identify themselves or ask questions about the men's immigration status as they arrested everyone on the property. So they didn't even see if they were citizens. They just arrested them. And they presented themselves as cops. So we were not able to protect undocumented people. Here's the article right here. So, yeah. Center for Constitutional Rights Executive Director Vince Varin finds the court's decision to uphold the Show Me Your Papers provision in Arizona's immigration law, which allows police to demand proof of immigration status from anyone they stop or detain, disappointing. In upholding Section 2 of SB 1070, the Supreme Court has legalized reactionary state ordinances that encourage widespread racial profiling. So, racial profiling, if you look like a Mexican, I can assume that you are here illegally, and I can harass you as a police officer. Racial profiling, treating you like a second-class citizen, and discriminating against you, and assuming something of you based upon the color of your skin. Completely legal under the Supreme Court and Donald Trump. Total fail for California. Protecting undocumented immigrants, Part 5. California Attorney General Javier Becerra warned employers Thursday of legal repercussions if they assist federal immigration officials in an impending crackdown in the sanctuary state. Federal judge rejected temporarily, barred a law that had required employers to restrict federal immigration officials' access to workplace. The state could no longer compel businesses under the law known as AB 450 to prevent immigration officials from accessing workplace and employment records without first obtaining a search warrant or subpoena. So California was trying to protect undocumented, and we tried to say if you're a California business, you can allow federal immigration officials in your business so they can search for undocumented immigrants. And the federal government struck that down and said, we don't care what law you pass, California. We can have immigration officials go to any business and see who's undocumented there. You cannot protect them this way at all. And you can't encourage California businesses to do this at all. So total loss. I remember this. They were like, we're going to fight back. And they completely lost on this one to Trump. Protecting undocumented immigrants, Part 6. Almost 2/3 of California's law enforcement works against the spirit of the sanctuary city laws. Of the 169 law enforcement agencies reviewed, 68 were not complying with SB 54. So many law enforcement agencies, 68 out of 169. So about 100 complied and about 68 did not. I'm not sure what that is, maybe like over a third, 40%. So even though we said we're a sanctuary state, about 40% more of our law enforcement didn't participate and did not follow the rule of California. You can't even get 100% cooperation. You can't even get 90 or 80% or 70%. You can only really get 60% cooperation. So that's a fail if 40% won't back you in California and will choose the racist president's policies. Undocumented immigrants, Part 7. So Agustina Arreola, Vincent Maradiaga, Sergio Lopez, Osmar Gadba, Igor Zayazin, Jose Hernandez, Jose Bucio, all died in federal ICE holdings in California, along with 3 detainee deaths and 6 unsuccessful suicide attempts at the Adelanto facility during 2017. A total of 10 undocumented immigrants died by federal mismanagement in California. So people are dead because we could not protect undocumented immigrants. They were put into these ICE detention facilities where conditions were horrible, and 10 people are now dead because we could not protect them. Okay. Part 3, California's land. We're going to block the federal government from selling off California public lands. Fail. We're going to prevent offshore drilling. Fail. We're going to protect the Clean Air and Water Acts. Fail. Federal government court backs Trump on selling off California lands. Judge rules in favor of Trump administration California federal lands case. That's from Politico. Totally failed on protecting lands in California, like we promised. We said we're going to stop him. Water under the Mojave Desert. They would block a controversial project that would pump groundwater out of the Mojave Desert and direct it to more populous communities near the coast. After killing the bill, the Senate Appropriations Chairman, Ricardo Lara, released a statement saying the project had gone through extensive environmental review and legislation shouldn't interfere. So they were going to stop water being pumped out of the Mojave Desert and protect the environment, and they completely backed down on that. So that was a win for Trump and against California protecting its environment. Also happened during the time of Trump. Dropping drilling, blocking coastal oil drilling. After President Donald Trump signed an executive order that would expand oil and gas drilling in federal waters off the California coast, Democratic Senator Hannah Beth Jackson of Santa Barbara introduced a bill intended to block it. Her SB 188 would have prohibited the state from approving new releases on pipelines or other infrastructure needed to support new oil and gas development. The bill would have cost the state millions of dollars in lost leases. Its demise in the Assembly Appropriations Committee marked a loss for environmentalists and a win for oil companies and the Trump administration. They were going to stop offshore oil drilling, and they just dropped their entire attempt to stop that. And they could not stop environmental damage, and they could not stop federal lands being sold off, even though they said they could. Finally, offshore drilling failed. The Clean Air Act also failed. Clean Air Act amid the environmental rollback came Senate Bill SB 9, which sought to make existing protections under the Federal Clean Air Act enforceable under state law. That failed, so they could not protect the clean air thing over federal law. Here we go. A bill to protect California from the threat of rollback federal regulations on clean air and water didn't even get a vote in the Assembly. Another bill that failed to gain traction was one to prevent offshore oil development. So California's anti-Trump resistance bills, what passed, and the same article. So you can see all of these things, and you're not going to see this brought up in the news, especially now. The attitude's going to be, we can stop Trump. We stopped him last time. We can make this happen again. And they're going to forget all of this, which was reported, because it's counter narrative. Only want to hear, yes, we can, and the sun's going to come out tomorrow. Oops, sorry. That's not supposed to. Give me 1 second. I don't know what's going on there. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So in conclusion, I've walked you through how the resist movement has massively failed to protect California against Trump. We'll go over it again. Trade war has been launched. California's economy has lost billions and hundreds of thousands of jobs. Trump also managed to cut down on skilled immigrant labor. He also managed to reduce the flow of immigrants who work in agriculture. He's also managed to cut Obamacare, and he's also managed to intimidate the California government to not even provide health care to undocumented people over a certain age. The Supreme Court has said that women and minorities don't have the right to class action lawsuits to protect against sexual discrimination or racial discrimination. They don't have a right to protect against police who burst into their home and gun them down. They also said it's legal for businesses to discriminate against LGBTQ customers. The military can partially ban LGBTQ citizens. They also said it's legal for the federal government to racial profiling against Latin people and racially profile them. The federal government did that in California and racially profiled people. California was not able to stop funding for the racist border wall or stop construction of the wall or punish California companies who wanted to work for Trump to build the wall. California failed to ensure that 2/3, well, I'd say 1/3 of its police agencies don't work with ICE officials. And they could not force companies to not work with ICE officials to do mass arrests of undocumented people. They could also not prevent undocumented people held for unlimited detention. And they could not prevent undocumented people from dying in camps. California also could not protect legal immigrants who wanted to come here from asylum. They could not protect people who were Muslim. And they could not protect California itself from being punished by Trump for trying to protect the undocumented. You won't see that. So again, somebody says we did a good job fighting Trump. Perhaps you won some battles, but did you see all the places that you lost? Racial discrimination, racial profiling, cops killing minorities. Minorities can't protect themselves from racial discrimination. You can be discriminatory against LGBTQ people. We can't protect our water. We can't protect our air. We can't protect our seas. We can't protect our coasts. We can't protect our land. And you want to say that's success? You out your goddamn mind. Hopefully the truth gets out because no one's talking about this in California media. Great comments. Yeah. Yeah, Sackby, how well did that work out? It didn't. Hey, I am 4 a.m. Howdy. We love talking to Texans. Hola a todos. I know it's a deep dive. I know it's a 30-minute show, but you're just not going to see this anywhere. This is why we do the organization, because there's so much data out there that people just don't know. And then they look at us going, that didn't happen. Yeah, it did. And it was reported in mainstream sources. Why can't mainstream sources report it now? I don't know, but they're not. Trump's coming back. He won many times last time. And this time, he's going to be better prepared and have better staff who won't flee him. Part of the reason he couldn't get much done was he didn't understand how government worked. And a lot of his staff fled because they were afraid of being caught up in a Russia collusion trial. Now his staff doesn't believe anything the media says about him. They will never leave. And now he knows how government works. And now he knows who he's going to be attacked. He will be more effective next time. He already won a bunch of times last time. And now he's going to be more effective. And you have California politicians acting like we won last time. Tell that to the 10 people who are dead. Tell that to the minorities with brown skin and the women who no longer have protection. Tell that to the Latin people who it's okay to racially profile. You did not protect us. You did not. You lost. And you are lying to the California people. And that's why I think Calexa will happen, because you can't even be honest about your record. You have to lie about your record to make people believe that you can actually protect them. And if you were telling them the truth, I would not do this show. I would simply point out articles that are already pointing this out. There are none. There are none out there. None. Look, no one's doing an honest accounting. We're it in California for an honest accounting. Yeah, that's where it's going, man. We don't want violence. We don't want dissolution. We're just realists who see where it's going. And we think it'd be safer for everybody and more productive and more peaceful for everybody if America and California just agreed for California to separate. We'll see. We just did a show we're talking about Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski, talking about how there might be mass secession in America. Top-ranking former military official speaking to one of the top legal minds in America, and they had that conversation. That's also here. We'll end it there, and we'll be back with more information that no one seems able to cover in California. That's true and factually based. Thank you. Yeah, I'd say it's dead. I'd say the Constitution's dead. We've said that for a while.